What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. And today, I'm going to be giving you my 2020 ACC preseason power rankings. So the ACC was a conference last year that, in a lot of people's opinions, was the worst Power 5 conference. Their only good team was Clemson. They were runner-up in the national championship game, and otherwise, that was about it. The ACC had a lot of teams that were overlooked, such as North Carolina, who was a pretty good team and expected to be a lot better this year, but their record did not show how good they were. And the ACC overall this year is just going to improve. As I said, North Carolina, Louisville's supposed to get better. Florida State's bringing in Mike Norvell. There's a lot of really good talent in the ACC this year, and I'm excited to see this conference improve. So before we get into the power rankings, you're going to see a list of stats on screen that I've listed out for every team in the ACC. From last year. And on the offensive side, that's on the left hand of your screen, it's going to be points per game, yards per game, rushing yards per game, passing yards per game, and then their overall offensive returning production. That's going to be a percentage number. And that basically says the percentage of stats coming back. And then you're going to get the flip-flop of those stats on defense. So opponent points per game, opponent yards per game, opponent rushing yards per game, opponent passing yards per game, and then their overall defensive returning production, which again will be another percentage number. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get on into the power rankings. So the ACC was a really hard team to rank, especially towards the bottom. There are just a lot of teams that aren't expected to be all that great last year, and I'd totally be okay if you rearrange these bottom teams in any order. But number 14, I had to go with the Syracuse Orange. Just a disappointing team last year. They were really, really good in 2018, and we thought they were going to be good last year, and that loss to Maryland just kind of set off a list of bad events for the Syracuse Orange. You didn't look at the stats last year. They had a pretty okay offense, but their defense was abysmal. Also, only returning 42% of that defense, and that's not going to help Syracuse at all. You're going to have to start a lot of young guys with little experience. Their recruiting class helps out a little bit, but their returning production is just not all that great. And I've already mentioned the defensive number. When you look there, only 61% returning on offense, and what was a pretty okay offense last year. I mean, it always could be better. Tommy DeVito is there at quarterback, I believe. He is returning for the Orange, and it'll be interesting to see if he can improve, and hopefully the defense for Syracuse can improve a lot. But until I see signs of that defense getting better, Syracuse is going to stay at the bottom of the ACC. All right, number 13, I have Boston College, and this might surprise a little bit of people, but Boston College is going to have a down year for me. When you look, their defense was overall not that great. They are returning a lot on their defensive side, so they're getting a lot of experience back on defense, but it's the offensive weapons that they are losing. You look, only returning 54% of their offense. A big part of that is because A.J. Dillon is gone. He is not at Boston College anymore, and A.J. Dillon was the reason why they had the #1 rushing attack in the ACC with just about 250 yards per game. And he is gone, so that number is going to go way down from where it was last year. You see there, Boston College, only the second worst recruiting class in the ACC. So not a great recruiting class either. It doesn't help Boston College out a lot. Their defense maybe could take a step up from where they were last year just because there's going to be a lot of experienced guys. But just the loss of A.J. Dillon and so many other weapons on offense is why Boston College is at number 13. Number 12, I have the North Carolina State Wolfpack. So I think this one might surprise a lot of people. I almost put them a little bit higher, but I had to put them at number 12. See there, they're 6th in the ACC in recruiting. When you look at their offense, it was not that great last year. They struggled to score the football and struggled just to get yards, period. But they are returning 81% of that offense, which, as you see there, is 2nd in the ACC. So maybe North Carolina State can be a pretty decent offense next year. They're returning a lot of experience. But then their defense, when you look, it was pretty average. It was pretty good stopping the run, and they're returning 67% of that defense, which, you know, is pretty okay as well. See there, it was 9th in the ACC. Overall, I just need to see improvement from this team. We They were expected to have a down year last year, but they really dropped off. I mean, they performed way under expectations. Everyone expected this team to not do so well in 2019, and they were just absolutely abysmal. And until I see signs of that changing, much like Syracuse, North Carolina State's going to stay at number 12. Number 11 is the Duke Blue Devils. So I almost flip-flopped North Carolina State and Duke, but the reason I had to go with Duke at number 11 is because they fixed their quarterback issue. They are getting Chase Bryce, a transfer quarterback from Clemson. He was under Trevor Lawrence's wing and hopefully can ride the Duke Blue Devils to what could be a better offense this year. You look last year, their offense was not that great, and then only returning 56% of that offense. But you bring in Chase Bryce, as I just mentioned, and hopefully could boost the offense there. And look, their defense was also not that great. They were pretty good at stopping the passing game, though. You see they're just a yard shy of allowing 200 yards per game, which is really good. It was third in the ACC, and they are returning 73% of their defense, which I see there is seventh in the ACC, but 73% means you're returning a lot of experience, and Duke's defense should still be fairly decent this year. You look up there, their recruiting ranking in the ACC was 12th, or that's the third worst. So their recruiting ranking definitely takes a hit, and that's why Duke is not higher. But overall, until I really feel like Chase Bryce can improve Duke's offense, and until that defense, especially in the run game, can improve, they're going to stay at number 11. But the reason they are at number 11 and not at number 12 is because of their returning production on defense. All right, so at number 10, I have the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, and this might surprise some people. And you might be thinking, wait, why are they at number 10? Did you expect them to be lower? Didn't they lose Jamie Newman? Yes, they did lose Jamie Newman, but don't forget about Sam Hartman. He is still a pretty good quarterback and was one of the reasons why that passing game was tied for first in the ACC. Sam Hartman came in, played a couple meaningful snaps. Jamie Newman and Sam Hartman kind of flip-flopped between the starting roles, and Sam Hartman was a good reason why, again, that passing attack was tied for first in the ACC, and what overall was a pretty good offense last year. Wake Forest was one of the surprises of the ACC, and they were fairly good, then ended up losing to Michigan State in their bowl game. Look, their defense could improve. It wasn't the best in the ACC last year, pretty average according to ACC standards, and they are returning 67% of that, which, as I have said before, is okay. You're getting a lot of experience back with that. What I haven't mentioned is they are only returning 33% of their offense. That is dead last in the ACC. A big part of that, again, is because Jamie Newman is transferring out, and they're just losing a lot of other weapons, but people forget about Sam Hartman. And I think Sam Hartman could be a really good quarterback this year, especially for the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Their recruiting class doesn't help out a lot, but the main reason Wake Forest is this high is because of Sam Hartman. At number 9, I have the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. This is going to be another surprise for people, and I know what you're thinking. When I was first making this list, I put Georgia Tech at number 14 right away. But then I started to think about Georgia Tech a little bit, and you look at their recruiting ranking. First off, it was 5th in the ACC, so not a bad recruiting ranking at all. Look, there's just the stats are absolutely horrible, but they're returning 74% of their offense and 94% of their defense. And overall, they are second in the nation in returning production, which is absolutely insane. Georgia Tech is going to have an up year. I think Georgia Tech could make a bowl game. I still don't have all that great of talent. They are bringing in some guys in the recruiting that could really help them out in what could turn around an absolutely horrid year for the Yellow Jackets. But again, the reason Georgia Tech is this high at number 9 is because of their returning production. I mean, just look at those percentages: 74% on offense, 94% on defense. They're bringing back a lot of experience, and this is why Georgia Tech is at number 9. All right, number 8, I have the Virginia Cavaliers. I almost put Virginia below Georgia Tech, but I feel like Virginia still has more talent than Georgia Tech. You look there, they are returning 51% of their offense, and a big reason why that number is so low is because Bryce Perkins, their quarterback, is gone. He is not coming back, and he was basically their entire offense for Virginia. You look there, their rush game definitely could improve, and they're going to miss the passing game from Bryce Perkins. And overall, their defense was fairly okay last year, and they are returning 81% of that, so they're going to have some good experience coming back on defense. But Bryce Perkins, I mean, as I said just a little bit ago, he was basically Virginia's entire offense, and the only reason Virginia got some points in the ACC championship game against Clemson, Bryce Perkins was not their quarterback. I don't think they would have scored anything against Clemson. The recruiting ranking you see there is 9th in the ACC, so again, not all that great of a recruiting class. Virginia's offense is definitely going to be down this year, but the reason Virginia is at number 8 is because they are returning 81% of their defense, and what, again, should be a fairly decent defense, and a defense I overall expect to improve. Number 7, I have the Pittsburgh Panthers. So Pittsburgh is a team that a lot of people overlook as well. They're still a very average team. You look, Pickett is their quarterback, and to me, he is a pretty good quarterback. They have some good weapons on both sides of the ball, returning 77% of their offense and 60% of their defense. So they're getting some experience back on both sides of the ball. Their defense, though, when you look last year, was one of the better defenses in all of the ACC, and especially in the rushing game. First in the ACC in rushing yards allowed with only 106 yards per game. Their passing defense was pretty good as well, with 213 yards per game allowed. The downfall for Pittsburgh last year was their offense, and they only scored around 21.5 points per game, and they just struggled to score the football overall. So Pittsburgh could have scored the football more last year. They definitely could have been a much better team, almost beat Penn State, and they gave a lot of other teams a great run for their money. But Tommy Pickett and the overall returning production on offense and just flat-out talent they have on defense is why Pittsburgh is at number 7. All right, number 6, I have the Miami Hurricanes. And first, we got to mention their recruiting ranking was 2nd overall in the ACC, and I was surprised to find that out. I thought some other teams had a better recruiting year than Miami did, but Miami was 2nd overall in the ACC, which helps that they're this high. Of course, they're getting transfer quarterback from Houston. De'Aaron King did not play a lot last year, so could be a little rusty, but overall, De'Aaron King still a very good quarterback and is hopefully going to improve when you look at what was not a very good offense last year. Their passing attack was pretty average, but they struggled to score the football. They struggled to get yards, period, and especially struggled to get yards on the ground with only 113 rushing yards per game. Hopefully, De'Aaron King, with his dual threat style, can help fix that in Miami. You see that they're only returning 59% of their offense, which is not that great, so could be a fresh start for Miami. And then you look, their defense was one of the better, if not top 3 in the ACC last year, Defense was top 3 in every stat you look there, under 20 points per game, just over 300 yards per game, 116 rushing yards per game, and under 200 passing yards per game. It was an absolutely outstanding defense last year. The turnover chain did wonders for the Hurricanes, but they're only returning 50% of that. So you're not returning a whole lot of experience, and the defensive uncertainty is why Miami is at number 6. Number 5 out of the Florida State Seminoles, 4th ranked recruiting class in the ACC. Look, overall, Florida State was pretty average last year, but they got some really good players. James Blackman is coming back. Brock Purdy's brother, I think it's Chubba Purdy, is probably going to be a backup quarterback for Florida State, thrown around with Brock Purdy. And then the biggest news for Florida State this year is Mike Norvell is coming in at head coach, and we all know what he did at Memphis. He was absolutely outstanding at Memphis, and overall just going to turn around Florida State, especially on the offensive side. You look just how many points Memphis was able to score. It was absolutely insane. They were always in high-scoring affairs, and maybe Florida State's defense couldn't overall improve a little bit. They are returning 83% of their defense, so returning a lot back on defense and hoping to get some good production from that. Florida State is going to stay at number 5, which is higher than what they would have been last year. They're going to stay at number 5 until overall I can just see some improvement, especially on the offensive side. And I just want to overall see what Mike Norvell does, but Florida State, number 5. All right, number 4, I have the Louisville Cardinals. You look, their recruiting class in the ACC overall was pretty okay. I mean, 7th in the ACC, not bad, not bad. But Louisville is a team that I really like this year. They got some tough games to play, especially week 2 versus Clemson. We look overall, their offense was pretty good last year, highlighted by quarterback Malik Cunningham and wide receiver Tutu Atwell, who was one of the best wide receivers in college football this year. But Louisville's defense has just got to improve. You look, allowed 33.5 points per game, allowed just about 440 yards per game overall, allowed over 200 yards on the ground per game and about 230 yards through the air per game, and those numbers are not good at all. They are returning 77% of their defense, so they are getting a lot of experience back, and hopefully Louisville's defense can be better than what it was last year, and I mentioned this, but 79% of their offense is returning again, highlighted by Malik Cunningham and Tutu Atwell, and what was a pretty solid offense this year. But if Louisville wants to be higher in these power rankings, again, first of all, their defense has just got to improve. And if Malik Cunningham and Tutu Atwell can get a lot of chemistry going, Louisville's definitely going to be a team to watch out for in the ACC. For right now, they're going to sit at number 4. At number 3, I have the Virginia Tech Hokies, and I almost put Virginia Tech at number 2, but then I saw their recruiting ranking. They are last in the ACC, which absolutely blew my mind away. I did not know that Virginia Tech's recruiting class was that abysmally, like, their recruiting class is not great at all. But what is highlighting Virginia Tech and is why they are this high, even with the worst recruiting classes, they have some really good talent coming back. 74% of their offense, highlighted by Hendon Hooker and Trey Turner. And then 89% of their defense, and there is talent all over that defense. And what was a pretty solid defense for the Hokies last year, maybe could give up a little less points, and Virginia Tech was in a lot of close games. Overall, their offense, especially in their passing game, to me is going to improve this season, especially because Hendon Hooker's got half a season under his belt and starting to get chemistry with some of the guys. Only came in about halfway through the season last year. So Virginia Tech is going to stay here at number 3 until overall I can just see some improvement from their passing game, and their returning production just needs to show out because their recruits don't help them out a lot. So Virginia Tech is going to sit at number 3. At number 2, I have the North Carolina Tar Heels, bringing in the 3rd best recruiting class in the ACC, and what overall was a still very solid team last year. You look tied for 2nd in the ACC in points per game with 33 points per game, 474 yards per game, 285 passing yards per game. They're one of the better offenses in the ACC. A lot of guys are coming back. Sam Howell is coming back, and he's going to be protected by a returning quintuplet of offensive linemen. I believe all 5 starting linemen are coming back for the Tar Heels, so Sam Howell's going to have a lot of time back there in the pocket. They got really good weapons out there on wide receiver for Sam Howell to use as well. 87% of offense returnings, absolutely insane. Then their defense, which overall I think could improve this year. They got some pretty good talent there, 64% of it returning, so they're getting some experience back and some is leaving. So North Carolina's just got to fill in the places on defense, but I believe that North Carolina is going to have one of the more explosive offenses in the country next year. And until their defense can prove themselves to me, they're going to sit at number 2. But also, it's going to be really hard to pass the team that's at number 1, because who else but the Clemson Tigers at number 1? I mean, come on, like, you all knew this was coming. First last year in the ACC in points per game, 1st in the ACC in yards per game, 2nd in rushing yards, only behind Boston College. Was a pretty close race overall. Tied for 1st with passing yards. And then when you look at the defensive side, the best defense in the ACC and one of the best in the country, only 13.5 points per game, under 300 yards allowed per game, only 116 rushing yards per game, and way under 200 yards passing allowed for this Clemson defense. Their downside is they are not returning that much, but Trevor Lawrence is coming back. Travis Etienne is coming back. They got some good weapons on wide receiver, but the big news for Clemson that just happened recently, I think maybe about a week ago, if that, is that Justin Ross is having neck surgery, and he is done for the 2020 college football season. He is not going to play at all, so that's a big loss for Clemson there. But Clemson's overall too talented, and yes, they're going to miss Justin Ross and who was going to be a first-round draft pick. Don't know what the draft stock is on him now, and then overall their defense losing a lot too, most notably Isaiah Simmons, but still lots of great talent all over the field for the Clemson Tigers, and Clemson's just far and away the best team in the ACC, and who else but the Tigers at number 1. So that's going to do it for my 2020 ACC preseason power rankings. If you guys enjoyed, please leave a like. Also consider subscribing if you're brand new to the channel or just enjoy the content that I put out. And if you have done so already, please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think about the ACC. And as always, until next time, remember, play hard, tailgate harder. I'll see y'all in the next video. Goodbye.